Welcome back to Leaving the Lies and Speaking Your Truth. We're on part 2 of our interview with Kay Hawkins, and I asked her a question at the end of part 1. I'm going to re-ask that question just for anybody who didn't catch that or didn't watch the first part. If you didn't, you should go back and do that. But the question was, when Yisrayl found out about his brother Jacob, that he had passed away and that he had died, what were your thoughts, or what was your reaction when that took place?
My reaction was, well, I guess this has caught up with you. And Yisrayl Hawkins was sweating bullets. And he had been, I think one of the boys had called him at the sanctuary and advised them that Jacob was ill with pancreatic cancer, and he wasn't expected to live very long. And Jacob wanted to see him again before he passed away. And this is in let's see, what year was that? Can't remember. 91,
One?
2?
I want to say one.
I want to say one.
Yes, it was in 1991, the spring, because that was another thing there. All of this was taking place. A curse causeless does not come. And so he was bringing plenty of curses upon himself and the work. And his theme that he and Jacob were going to join together and go to Israel and save the world just fell flat on its face. But he finally called me and he said, I've got to go to Odessa because Jacob it won't have long to live, and I've got to go visit him. And he took 2 or 3 visits to Odessa, to see Jacob.
Right.
And but I was never invited to go, and so I didn't go. But he told me that he prayed for Jacob, and that later on, one of the boys said, while Jacob was in the hospital room, Bill told him, well, I'm going to fast and pray for you, so, for your healing. And he said one of the boys later looked out the hospital window and saw him walking by, getting into his car, and he had a bag of popcorn munching on it while he got inside. And he said, well, that's so much for fasting and prayer by Buffalo Bill Hawkins.
So having said that, Kay, I actually didn't quite expect that answer from you, because does that mean that then before that, even before this, did you not believe in the teaching of the 2 witnesses before that time? Or did you have questions about it? Or
I had, that was a doctrine that Bill himself introduced to me. And it was thrilling to hear it. But, no one knows the day or the hour.
right.
And he certainly had something a hook to it for all the people to listen to, and he used to be a great speaker,
Right.
and had dynamic sermons and everything. But I heard the Messiah says no one knows the day or the hour, but I would do my best to write what he printed about the two witnesses, and they would rise up and all this other stuff. And his sermons, completely focused on that. And so, but in 1991, well, here came the big blow up.
The shift, yeah.
And he kept it quiet from all the elders until the very last minute, and announced Jacob's death at Passover in 1991.
I remember that. And Kay, after it came across the pulpit, after YH, or I write YH, after Bill, that's what I'm going to call him too, after he had his newfound prophecy because the scriptures were not translated properly, what were your thoughts on this?
I had the opportunity to do the very first work of the book of Yahweh, but he took it away from me, And all the second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth, I don't know how many editions there are now, but that is the fiction of Yisrayl Hawkins and David Verner.
Okay.
Well, it's funny because I remember that sermon. We were under I call it the circus tent.
Yes.
Okay.
I remember it specifically and very clearly happening that morning. And then that evening, there was like a special gathering of some sort. And I was sitting next to your, not oldest son, but your middle son. And then on this side of me, I had your youngest son and Melody next to him. And it was my father's first feast, and he was 3 rows up from us. And when that came across the pulpit in the morning time, my dad, I remember walking back to the tent, my dad looking at my mom going, you just asked me to write a big check. Should we really be here? Well, the thing is that night, the power had like circuited out or something like that, but all the power went out. And keep in mind, it's my dad's first feast, and you remember my dad, and your son's next to me, and he puts his hand on my knee. In other words, because people were standing up and it was dark, and he was like, stay in your seat. In other words, don't get up and, get hurt or trip or anything like that. But I hear my dad's voice going, Hazel, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. That's why I remember when that came out.
Oh my God. Oh man. When the power went out, I kind of remember that when the power went out because there were lights hooked up inside the tent. And
yes.
Oh
yeah, was that the first tent? No, it was the second one. The first tent was an army tent, and the second one we rented. Was that the big one?
It was the big one that was like orange and yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had like stripes. That's why she calls it the circus tent. Yeah.
Yeah, and it would. So
I think you kind of answered this, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it again because I'm not really sure here. But especially during the times after you found out the truth of what was going on with the secretary, did you ever feel alone and scared? And how did you handle those feelings being the overseer's wife? How did you cope with that?
I cried my eyes out. And I cried and I cried. And so by the end of 1993, I was sick of crying because I was so depressed. I did not know that such a pain could overtake someone. So I went to a little doctor. First, I went to a psychiatrist. I was hoping that he would give me some medicine to help my head. Right. He tried to talk to me, and I said, well, my husband's having an affair, and blah, blah. And he said, well, a man should do this and do that. I felt like, what am I doing here? That man doesn't understand a word I'm saying. Right. So my next one was to go to a little physician that some of my family used, and I lied to him. And I said, well, my youngest has finally left the home, and I'm very depressed about it. And, I'm having empty nest syndrome. He gave me Prozac. I started taking that, and 10 days later, I started feeling better. And by the end of the month, I was almost my old self, mentally. And that's when the zany happened. Buffalo Bill was so proud of all his safes, which he kept his cash in and everything. And he gave me a feast trailer on the 44 acres. And in that feast trailer were several safes. And so I and my youngest son and my oldest daughter went during the daylight and took them all
and
out.
my sister. My sister helped lift some of those safes. I'll say it.
And took them, and we hired rented a storage and put them in.
Yep.
Well, Yisrayl Hawkins had been ignoring me for January, February, and March, and here came Passover, and all of a sudden I get a phone call. Where are my safes? That's the first thing he had communication with me. He thought that I had finally settled down and shut my mouth. And so, I had that feast, he was busy interrogating, trying to find out where the safes were. And finally, somebody broke. It wasn't my children, but somebody else I had confided in. They broke into the storage. Thankfully, they left the titles to the property and the bookkeeping that I had been taking care of. And so that's immediately I filed for a divorce because, he was steadily stealing everything of value on the farm and dragging it off. And the last straw was Perry Woolridge, remember him?
Yep.
And
Yes.
And it was Martin, the one from Louisiana who he was his henchman. Can't remember his name now, but they were taking the 2 best tractors and the 3 best pieces of farm equipment across the field on a Friday evening on the Sabbath.
Mm.
And the children and I were, we had been into my house and we were eating, and all of a sudden somebody said, "Well, what's that sound?" And looked out there and I saw the tractors.
Remember that. I'd forgotten about it, but now that you're saying that, it's bringing back some memories. Some of that stuff is a little fuzzy for me, but.
And
wow.
then I called the sheriff, and I was going to press charges for theft for those 2 guys.
Right.
But then the sheriff got a call from my hubby that he had sent them, and I told the sheriff, I said, "Please please note the models and the serial numbers of these tractors and these 3 pieces of equipment, because if you don't, I will never see them again."
Right.
And then filed for a divorce, went to town, bought copper, brass chains with huge padlocks, locked the whole place up so they couldn't get in anymore.
Right.
And but still, I found out that he had wires, so he was taping my phone calls from my home, invading.
Wait a minute. So he had bugged your house.
Yes.
He had bugged the telephones and bugged the house, and
I remember that. I remember when we were suspicious of it. Remember, Kay? Because there were things that we were saying inside the house in confidence, because Mark and Margot would come over and we would all talk, and Justin and I would be there and we would talk about things. And then things that we were talking about in confidence were getting out, and we were figuring out that they were listening. And then we started going outside to have our conversations because we figured out that that's what was going on.
So he, and today that has become multiplied because, I found the email that someone sent me, about what's going on now.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Okay. You mean as far as the congregation being spied on and listened to? Okay.
Because the HOI changed a lot. The workers on the farms are getting allowance of 70, 100. But when the year 2005 came, Israel decides to cut the payments to all new members. Pay is now 30 to 50 a week. And some of them started getting wives. And Kahan Shaul says on House of Yahweh no longer giving out wives. a guy was living in his tent next to the butcher house where the cows were slaughtered. He a slaughter place. On a prep day, it shall drive to his tent. You got to go, Schallschlatter told the man. The watchers on cameras saw him taking homestead field veggies in his bag to his tent for food to eat. So he was accused of stealing from the house of Yahweh.
And they caught him on video camera. Now it's gone to video surveillance.
Right. So it's video surveillance. And if you go down that road, there's cameras all over the place now. And if anybody drives up that road where we used to go into the gate,
yes, now they can see them.
It is all
on
monitored.
camera. Wow.
Yes, and I actually have pictures of it. I can actually send them to you, Mel, to upload to verify that Kay is not a liar. Because, you remember where my father's property was, Mel.
Yeah.
Well, that now cuts through, I think, to the slaughterhouse. You were there, Kay. You've come to dinner there with my mom, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Well, behind it, do what?
Nope, go ahead.
So behind it, I think it leads to the slaughterhouse. But as you come up my parents' driveway, there's a telephone pole. There's a camera. There's a telephone pole in my father's driveway. There's a camera. If you go back on my father's 10 acres, there's another telephone pole with a camera. I took pictures of it. There are cameras on the telephone poles, and I specifically pointed to the pole speaking to my brother, and I asked him, is that a camera? Oh, no, you're seeing things. I said, I'm not seeing anything. I'm looking right at it. That's a camera. She's not lying. I got pictures of it.
So, I mean, was this after your parents, were your parents still alive at this time, and did they know that those cameras were there, or do you not know?
This was two years ago. It was when my oldest went and bought a book from your oldest, Kay.
Okay.
So I think that was 2 years ago, correct?
About.
Okay, so this is so it would be that your brother would have given them permission potentially to have those cameras there, because is that private property, right? Your parents own that land, or they did. Now
yes.
And now your brother does, but okay. Huh.
It's all over the place, no one goes in and no one comes out.
Without them knowing.
All the women are forced to stay. And when they do come to town, they're dressed so dreadfully.
Wow.
They look like paupers.
It's awful. Okay, I just want to back up for just 1 minute because I'm very curious about this. Now, did any of the people, anybody that you were close to, come to you in confidence and confide in you their thoughts or feelings after Yisrayl had his prophecy given to him about the two witnesses?
I can't remember anyone saying anything.
Okay.
It was Yisrayl brought that to me personally, and he said that it came from somebody else. But from then on, it was the hook,
right.
The two witnesses, and that caused the house of Yahweh to grow. But then the fix, after Jacob died in 1991, and then when the new revelation came out, the new writings on, the first two witnesses booklet was completely destroyed. No one could get a copy of it anymore because the new booklet had come out.
Right.
And
oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, it was a world of baffle them with baloney, dazzle them with delight.
Okay, and we're kind of going out of order here too, because my question actually fits in better with what we were talking about before with the cameras. But
I know.
so, but I'm going to jump backwards again too. Were you ever threatened by anyone from the house of Yahweh after you left?
uh, I was burgled,
Oh, you
you
were.
know. Yes. When I had they would, I guess they wanted to get their uh, machinery, because when I later, much later, while I was cleaning out the shop, I found their equipment where they had been recording my telephone calls. So they've tried to break in several times, but I had big heavy locks on anymore, so
Right.
they were not successful, and that continued, that pilfering, until the day the divorce was final, and that was December 9th, 1994. That was the day that the divorce became final, and after that, I wasn't bothered any longer.
So you weren't outright threatened, but there was a sense of feeling threatened around you
Well,
during that
there
time.
was a sense of, what are you doing on my property?
Right.
But I really wasn't afraid of the people.
Right.
You know, they're the people themselves are gentle people. They're not criminals. And I was, all the time I lived there. I moved. I moved. I built up a rent business. When I was divorced, and Jackie and Harold, helped me, and I helped them, and we helped, and I made a living, you know, and Yahweh helped me, and it was successful. But then in 2006, I began working for Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and it was I was getting older, and I knew that the hospital was at least 15 miles away from me if anything were to occur. And I was moved by the Heavenly Father to sell out and move into Abilene. And so gradually, the house that I'm living in now was one of my rent houses that I got in the divorce settlement, and fixed it up. And and that was in 2006. And Buffalo Bill bought me out at Eula. But if I had not moved at that time to sell out to him, I probably wouldn't have been successful, because in 2008, he was convicted of bigamy, accused of bigamy and child labor laws.
Yep.
So in 2008, everything broke out, and I was not there to have anything to do.
You were
with
far away. You were in
it.
Abilene.
And everything worked out. Justin had come home from the Army, and he was home that summer, and he helped me move. And something comes up, it's right there, right the moment, take it.
Yes.
Because you will never get it again. And that was
Right.
so I moved into town, and I have been right across from the house of Yahweh ever since.
The other house of Yahweh.
Yeah,
The
printing
TMP
house
Lane
of
one.
Yahweh. And I see Walter driving around every once in a while to check the fences and stuff like that. They don't wave. I'm lost.
Right.
Mel, I think we should probably, I'll do 17, you do 19.
Okay. Oh yeah, that'll work. Yep.
Or no, you do 17 and I'll do 19. So do the next question.
Okay. I'm not asking for any names or specifics, but in general, how did the multiple marriage teaching overall affect your family as a whole?
Well, it split us up. Some were waiting for the opportunity to leave because they knew it was nothing, and others stayed and were shortly tricked into certain circumstances,
Right.
like my oldest son.
Right.
But then he left. You know, he didn't want anything to do with it. He divorced that Stone girl that he
Right.
had. I'm not going to say anything else. He divorced her and went back to his wife. And thereafter, they had 2 sons. And they're still together today.
Yeah.
And Christy was in a place where she was could not get married for I don't know how many years.
Right.
And then recently I heard that she had finally been given permission.
Yeah.
So, about time. And then my middle son was the last one to come out.
And so since then, all of your children came out. But for a while, it fractured your family. It divided your family.
Yeah.
But
Right.
but since then, everyone is out. All of your children have left.
Yes.
And they're all back in your
children
life.
are out. They're scarred by it. They're
Right.
scarred by some of their decisions. But you know, I don't hold anything against them because their minds were manipulated also.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's, in fact, when I first came out, you know, I still thought that he was one of the 2 witnesses, you know, because the mind control there, you know, says, well, why did you leave if you thought he was one of the 2 witnesses? I thought to myself, hell was better than that, than to stay there. I said, I had to get out of it.
How many times have we heard that, Malcolm?
A lot. And we've
that?
both said it too, yes. Yep.
So I'm not afraid of hell anymore.
Yep.
I've been there.
I hear you.
I bet. Kay, did anybody reach out to you and honestly want to help you and to support you emotionally when you were going through this?
The ones that were that came out all at once. When I was excommunicated, there was about 50 others that left, and some were excommunicated with papers, and some left on their own free will. And that group, you know, we gave each other support, and we would meet in our homes on the Sabbath days and have services and moan about what was going on up there for a while. then it got over it, so we just moved on. You have to let it go someday.
It was known as the Great Fall Away.
Yes.
When any of you guys were spoken of, it was the Great Fall Away. That's how it was mentioned, just like that. And I can remember I was a little bitter because I wasn't ready to leave, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
As the years had gone on, I got a little bitter. And the running joke with my group that I had to form once all of my friends up and left me,
I'm sorry.
I was like, I said, man, I should have went with them. I should have been a part of the Great Fall Away. And that's how it was done.
And now, then it was just the trickle fall away, eventually they all came out because you can't stay in that.
Right.
A person who has a sound mind resents being controlled and manipulated. And, it just doesn't work like that.
No. Eventually most people, I think, eventually have a breaking point at some point, and they end up having to leave. They end up getting to a point where they mentally have to leave.
Yes.
The next question she already answered, Autumn, so I'm going to skip that. I'm sorry, Kay, were you going to say something about that? Go ahead.
Yeah, you go on to 21.
I
was thinking the same thing.
Okay. I'm sorry, Kay, were you finishing? Were you going to say something there?
No,
okay.
I was just saying, just finishing up that everyone with a sound mind finally came to a breaking point, and they are no longer part of that perverted organization.
And I can attest to that because I was that person. I enough was enough. We were going on his third one. I was haughty. I was Satan's sister. My children were being used as a threat. My son had already been taken away from me. The verbal, the physical, other types of abuse were already taking place. And when I reached out for help, and I was told point blank, well, we asked him about that. Now, keep in mind, I wasn't the first wife to go to him. I was the third wife to go and tell them of what he was doing. And I was told, you were the leader in these accusations, and you were the liar. And I thought to myself, well, who else came out about this? I didn't even know that the other wives had gone. And that's when I said, enough is enough. I'm done. I would rather burn eternally than put up with this anymore. I can't. Yep. But like you though, Kay, it was hard. Man, that first year I would wake up in a cold sweat. Did I do the right thing? Is this the right thing? But I fought through it.
Yep.
Well, you knew that you could not go back. He wouldn't let you back.
No.
Because,
No. Oh, he didn't let me back on his terms, his condition, living out in the tent in the back with no food, no heat, no water, no nothing. And every penny I made would have had to gone back to him.
Right, to pay your tithe that you had stolen from the house of Yahweh while you were gone. And that was the condition of everyone who wanted to go back. Well, you owe this much tithe. You've got to pay all this to have restitution, and then you can come back.
Wow. That's crazy. So did you ever have any like aha moments when you became aware of Yisrael's motivations as far as the house of Yahweh went, or maybe even as far as your marriage went, to where it was like this light bulb went off and you saw him in a different way or in a different light?
Well, the light bulb went off when the secretary revealed herself, because, I had become slowly detaching emotionally, because I was staying for the work. I wasn't staying for him.
Right.
I was staying for the writing and for the lessons that I was receiving, and the Holy Spirit and everything, and all the people who were counting on us. And but I did not have a hand in the money.
Right.
I never received a penny of payment for all the years that I worked there. What I got in the divorce was it. And then he said I was destroying the work and stealing everything he had.
Oh my gosh.
Now, if I may, I would like to point out to people who are watching this, people who are watching that are still in, people that are watching that have left. Kay was not a quote unquote Tammy Faye Baker. She was not given free reign, and she did not have fancy name brand, brand new cars. She had a nice home, but it wasn't as modern and up to date and all of that. Kay was told who, what, where, when, why, and how, just as much, if not more, than the regular congregation. I need for everybody to be very clear in your mind that this woman that we're speaking to right now was held literally by her throat, foot on her throat, and told what she could and couldn't do. But yet she still, as you have heard out of her own mouth, still went to the congregation and said, I must keep my mouth shut so that the little ones do not leave, because this is the truth. I must continue to smile and teach and do this work that this man is not doing, but we will soon find out she herself did, and continue on with life. I need for this to be point blank, specifically clear to everybody that is watching. She did not sit on a golden throne.
No. So.
Sorry, Kay. I had to say it.
Bless you. Thank you for saying that.
No, I think that did need to be said, and we're down to another, well, just a little under 3 minutes here. So, I think it's your question. Do you want to ask that question, and then we'll go to part 3? As far as that?
No, you go ahead and ask 22 because
Okay.
this goes right along with what I just said. They're about
Okay.
to learn the truth.
Okay. So, okay, now we know this, but we're going to make this clear. But we know that you did a majority of the typesetting and a lot of the writing as part of the work of the house of Yahweh. Was there a specific time when, or that you can remember, when Bill told you how to translate something that caused any type of disagreement, or was there any disagreements about that, and how was that handled? So we'll answer that question. I'll re-ask when we come back for part 3. So I'm going to send you another link. So we'll be right back.